Robin Pod is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre. Make them your first and only choice for a vast array of vehicle services. They are a reputable East Hull-based car specialist and dedicated to providing quality services at reasonable prices. And don't forget, they are trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Find them at 146 Leeds Road and ask them about the exclusive discount they offer Hull Kia Rovers Forever members. Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning. Welcome to the Robin Pod, wherever and whenever you are tuning in. The games are now coming thick and fast with our round 4 encounter with St Helens just around the corner. Joining me to preview that game and to look ahead, look back at the rampant Robins victory over Salford is Robin Pod regular Graham Turner. And I'm also delighted to be joined by Steve Till once again for Robins Revisited, and we answer all your questions in question time. Graham, you've not been on for a while. Welcome back to the Robin Pod. How are you?
I'm all right, John. Thank you. Yeah, it was back end of last season, I think, was last time was on, so always good to be back.
Yeah. What have you made of Super League so far? Because it's a bit of a funny season, isn't it? In terms we've seen the joy about Las Vegas, and we've seen St Helens, Wigan and Warrington playing there. There's been a lot of noise about that. But Super League, I don't know. What do you make of the opening season so far?
I think the first 3 rounds have been fairly uneventful. Obviously there was the opener to the season with Wigan versus Leigh, and I still can't quite work out whether that was a great advertisement for the game or not. And I think if you are a rugby purist, then it was fantastic to see 2 teams cancelling each other with fantastic defence. If you're advertising it to a new audience, it's what the heck was that? 1-0. I thought we were watching rugby, not football. So I think that was a weird, strange start to the season. I don't think we've seen anything too spectacular yet from any teams to say, wow, they're really on it this year. Albeit Wigan have looked very good in the last couple of weeks. And certainly over the weekend in Vegas, they looked very strong and look like they're getting up to full speed pretty quickly. I think the season's started well for some clubs. I think there was a couple of clubs that were, I think I've used the Castleford game for us as our first game as a benchmark, and we managed to scrape the golden point victory. And I think Castleford were at their upper limit of their level of performance, with it being first game, relatively fresh squad, injury-free, etc. And we weren't quite at full tilt yet. So I think that was a bit of a leveler, but we managed to overcome that one. Again, week 2, I think the stand-up performance was again from Wigan in terms of the level of performance there. Last weekend with Vegas, and there was a big old deal about the event in Vegas, the whole razzmatazz of Vegas and what it would bring for rugby league, etc. And I went into watching that not really knowing or understanding what it could and would and should mean for the game, but I think I'm a bit better informed now about how important that type of event is for promoting rugby league on a global stage. And you think about some of the events that Vegas has held in Formula 1, NFL, Super Bowl, etc. There's lots goes on there, and I think to have rugby league for the first time ever played in the States on that venue, at that venue with the whole week of activity and buzz and build up, and it received quite a lot of promo on Sky Sports over here. So yeah, hopefully it can spread the word of rugby league across the world, bring new audiences to the game. And it was a real interesting dilemma, I thought, from what is a traditional northern game, across the M62 corridor, to see it all with the glitz and glamour of Vegas and all the razzmatazz and the neons and that for our game. I just thought it was a real weird concept to try and get a head around. But if that's where the game is looking to expand and go on a regular basis, that's something we're going to have to get used to. So yeah, I think overall, the first 3 weeks, on a personal note for us, 3 out of 3, job done. We're underway. The season as a whole, I think for me, I think we're all growing into it and finding finding our levels at the minute.
Yeah, and I think that, Graham, that's I mean, it's a bit uncharted territory for Robins, isn't it? Like, in terms of we're almost like, time's gone past, we'd be going game to game, winning, getting the 3 points, 2 points, seeing where that takes us. Now we're almost sort of taking a step back and going, well, it's not about now, it's about where we end up at the end of the season, where we are, the mid part, where we are in terms of the Challenge Cup. Are we in the quarters, the semis, the finals? So we're almost sort of playing a different bit of game as supporters, because, of course, every game counts, and there's no denying that. But also, it's that longer view of the season. Additionally, we've been used to looking at that longer view in terms of, I hope we're not at the bottom. I hope we're not competing down there. And now we're actually going, no, do you know what? If we don't get the win here, we don't get the win there early on, don't worry, because this side will come good by the end of the season. And I think a lot of that's come from, there's a bit of a measured approach. And I think that's come from Willie Peters, how he approaches the game, how he talks, how he sets his stall out in terms of the plan for the team, where he expects us to be. He doesn't get too high, he doesn't get too low, and I think he's got a real measured approach. And I think I'm really impressed with Willie Peters. I've noticed he's gone out of he don't wear his traditional now coaching gear. He's got a white shirt on. I don't know if that's made a difference, but I am really I'm enthralled by Willie Peters a lot, in terms of how he's someone that we can just listen to and follow. And when you listen to him and he talks about the game and he talks about the games, you sort of, there's no reason to get too excited, and there's also no reason to be too down.
Yeah, and I think I agree completely, John. I think that's a mindset shift that as fans we've had to adapt to over the last 2 or 3, 2 and a bit seasons with Willie at helm. And like you said before, we have been looking over our shoulder quite early, because we haven't had the run of games that we, from a results perspective, we've started poorly, and we've always been behind the 8 ball. And I think now, I read it earlier on, that we first time in Super League we've gone 3 from 3 in the opening 3 weeks, which again is uncharted territory for us, which is progress, whatever you want to call it. But I agree with you about listening to Willie Peters. I think he talks a lot of sense. He's very knowledgeable about the game, and I think it's sort of clear to see that there is a plan behind the scenes about breaking that season up into chunks and blocks, I think he calls it, of games, and maybe a 10-game block, and seeing where we are then, and setting almost like mini season targets within that 10 weeks of what we want to achieve, and then moving on to the next goal. Because to go from week 1 to week, obviously 27 weeks in the regular rounds, but with a successful cup run, that could be 31 weeks of activity. So to go from 0 week to week 31 in the grand final, that's a long period of time to stay motivated, to stay hungry, etc. So having those bite-sized chunks of activity where you've got targets to aim for within that helps you get to the next block, which is 8-10 games away, perhaps, something like that. So I like that methodical process that is brought to it, and he's shared that as in his interviews previously, and his pressers. And I quite like the fact that we can sort of understand that as well, rather than wondering what the heck is going on. We've got a clear plan that, look, everything that Willie Peters has said pretty much in the past 2 and a bit season has been actioned to a really, really good standard. So I think we've got to now trust in Willie, that not that we didn't before, but I think we can believe it and then all buy into it as well.
Yeah, and that's the currency he's operating in, isn't it? In terms of pretty much, like you said, what he says he wants to do, or the actions he's taken, have actually manifested itself into a positive reaction. Let's go to that Salford game then, Graham. Niall Evans at fullback, Tom Davis on the right wing, Jack Broadbent right centre, Ollie Gilder at left centre, left wing, Joe Burgess. And then we saw Daniel Richardson starting at number 6. Peter Hickey, he started again at 7. Then the starting props were Sue and 𝗬𝗂𝗏 with McIlroy at number 9. And then the second rows were Reece Martin, James Batchelor with Elliot Minchella, of course, at number 13. The bench was Litton, Hadley, Whitbread, Tanganoa. I suppose we're going to talk about the game against St Helens, obviously, later on. Danny Richardson, though, named in the number 6 spot. Of course, Michael Lewis would have normally been playing that position. What did you make of Danny Richardson's performance?
Yeah, I thought it was very good. I thought beforehand, without our first choice halfbacks, we may have struggled against Salford. Now, not knowing what Salford were going to dish up on the evening, you always walk into the game, you're chatting with your buddies around what might happen, what the game might look like, and when you see the team pop up and recognise that you've got not your first choice halfbacks, and you do worry about that creativity. But I thought Richardson was excellent on the night. Obviously, came up trumps with goal kicking as well. I think he was 6 from 7. Had a hand in some significant moments of good attacking play for us. Didn't look rusty or out of place at all in terms of we've been used to seeing Mikey there. So I think from a replacement perspective, it couldn't have gone much better for Danny, and fair credit to him for dishing that up as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because that performance from Danny Richardson has then thrown up the conundrum of who starts for the next game in terms of, is Tyrone May fit? If he is, that's the position. Michael Lewis has got the potential to be fit, and there's every chance that Lewis and May will play against St Helens. But it's raised a few questions around Tyrone May, hasn't it, in terms of how well Danny Richardson played. But then all of a sudden, there seems to be a bit of pile-on in terms of Tyrone May. And people questioned him last season in terms of what does Tyrone May bring to the side. I'm fully behind him. I think Willie Peters is. I think what showed me why Willie Peters is fully behind Tyrone May was the fact that he allowed him to come back on the 1st of January for pre-season training. So Willie Peters is known as a bit of a hard ass in terms of pre-season training. No, you come back when. But the fact that he allowed him to be the last player back for pre-season training shows me how much or how valuable he is to the team and how much Willie Peters really trusts him. So I always think, well, that tells me he is going to be a starting player. But obviously, you can't then discount what Richardson did in that game against St Helens. But there seems to be a bit of a pile-on, Graham. I don't know if you've noticed about people probably, don't appreciate what Tyrone May necessarily brings to the team, because then they've seen Richardson kick 6 goals from 7. To be fair, have a good game. But for me, I still don't think Richardson is in Willie Peters' mind in terms of a starting halfback role. And I'm surprised, Graham, what the pile-on has been from probably more on social media in terms of Tyrone May being, well, what does he bring? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I think I don't agree with all that at all. I think he's like you. I think he's an excellent player, and I think it speaks volumes what you said about Willie's attitude towards it was family reasons. Obviously, he was stayed over in abroad for at the beginning of the season. But I think again, it's one of them. It's not just what we see on the Friday evening or the Thursday evening or whenever the game is. It's the Monday to Thursday slot as well that the coaching staff and Willie see the interactions with players and the contributions that they make during the week. We just see that 80-minute performance on game day, and I don't think this. All right, is been missing for the last couple of games, but certainly there was a lot of games last season where he was very good. Admittedly, some games, as most players are, they're not at the top of the game every single week, but that's just form. That's just the nature of sport and activity. So it's one of them where I think if push comes to shove and it was a choice of the 3 players and he had to choose 2 of them, I think he'd always go with May and Lewis if there both fit for that combination. But say Danny Richardson has done himself absolutely no harm in putting himself in the frame to say, look, Gaffer, I'm here. I can do a good job for this team. And if one of them is not 100% fit, then we've got a ready-made quality replacement to pull that jersey on. And that you've heard, and everybody will have heard Willie talking about that next man up mentality. We are going to get injuries. We are going to get drops in form. We are going to get suspensions. That's just the nature of rugby league. We all accept that. So for that next man up mentality for Richardson to come in and deliver that, he said to Willie Peters, you've got a decision to make. If them two are fit and I'm putting in this performance, you've now got a problem in terms of fitting 3 players into 2 jerseys. How are you going to do it? I'm giving you my best shot here. And I think, like I say, that can only help from a competition perspective of providing the 3 of them to be on their game. There's no guarantees that if Lewis comes back or if May comes back, they're going to get that jersey. They have to earn it again. And we've had Peters talking about that all through his tenure with us. So if he keeps that mentality up, then Danny Richardson can do no more. I thought it was very good. On the point, John, around like say social media issues, etc. If that is an issue, we've seen it before where Willie Peters has not been afraid to make a hard decision and a tough decision in terms of letting players go that he's signed. His choices of recruitment haven't worked out, so he's not been afraid to say, look, it's not working out for you here. You need to move on. And if that ever was the case with any other players, I think he'd be able to make that call again, because that's just that, as you said, that ruthless streak that he's got within his locker, which to achieve the best, that's the sort of thing you've got to be able to do. Yeah, and I think what the point I was trying to make, Grim, is that he wants these players who are not necessarily, and we've seen it, the players who have been let go in the past. It's because basically they've gone to Willie to say, hang on, I want a first team spot. I want to be playing with the first team. Willie Peters has said to him, well, you've got to keep, stay within this fold, keep training, and we'll see where you get you. And the players have gone, well, I want to see what is the another option. And actually, if you look at the players who've departed under Willie Peters' reign, he's probably been right every time, hasn't he? In terms of the ones that have gone, no one's really excelled away from the Robins. So I think Willie Peters is fair. And I think also on the same point though, with players like Tyrone, mate, he will say, actually, Danny Richardson is pushing you. He's pushing you. What can you do now? So it's not a gimme being in that position. So it'd be really interesting to see. I do firmly believe Tyrone May, Michael Lewis, they're the first choice halfbacks. Danny Richardson has proved during that game against Salford what he can do, what he brings to the table. But, and this is nothing to do with Danny Richardson, but Graham, that Salford side, that was a poor showing from them. Yeah, I thought everything about Salford on Thursday night was poor. Thought their attitude was poor. Obviously, the performance was poor. Their attitude was poor. The discipline was poor. Their game tactics, I thought they were there to deliberately slow the game down and try and get under our skin, which worked against them because the penalty count was heavily against them. Thought the travelling support was poor. Everything about them on Thursday night was poor. Now, whether that was anything to do with they knew in advance of what was happening behind the scenes at the club, I don't know, and whether it was almost like a protest performance. Again, we don't know. We don't know that. I'm just surmising it's the only logical reason, because on the face of it, after that blowout they had against Saints, that was their protest week. They should have been back on it and delivering for their fans their best performances for the last couple of weeks. But obviously, they came up short against Leeds the week before, and then against us, it was completely abject of any quality whatsoever. Yeah, and when you look at the Robins side as well, don't forget during the game, 3 players went off injured. We had our first choice halfback pairing missing. Dean Hadley missed the training previously because of the virus. Leyland wasn't able to train either because of the virus, so he wasn't even an option. And yet, despite all of that,
Salford, I mean, I don't even think Rovers really got out of second gear. I think what I'm saying is, Graham, despite the scoreline, I don't even think Rovers really. I don't think Rovers were great on against Salford. Yet they still managed to score what they did, and coasted to a victory really, which shows you how poor Salford was. But I think there was credit to Robins as well for how they responded to the in-game changes, the injuries, how they responded to that. And I think that's what should be focused upon, is how the Robins did, ultimately canter to a victory. The scoreline probably doesn't reflect how easy that game was, but there was a lot of adversity in that game for the Robins.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about it last season, John, about how we've acted and reacted to adversity, whether it's off the field stuff, prior to a game or actually in game. We've reacted very well and we've dealt with that. And for me, there was a classic example there of the adversity that Salford have faced over the last couple of weeks. They still haven't got over it. They've still got the bottom lip out of it, over it. Whereas we had, like you say, after 90 seconds, we had Evels going off and we had to rejig the fullback position. Reece Martin went off, 20 minutes later, whatever it was, with what's proven to be a quite a serious injury. Reading the reports today and the length of layoff. So again, we had to readjust with that. Like say, illnesses during the week. There was lots to deal with in that game, but we just got on with it. Didn't sulk about it. Just continued with the same mindset of defence, which again, we talked where we were about. As we got to about 50, 60 minutes, then we knew the game was won. The big challenge then was to keep that same mindset, to keep that scoreboard at 0 against us. And that, that obviously happened, and we managed to get a try or two later on to really, really kill that game off. But yeah, I think that being able to deal with adversity in game and not let performance standards drop is a real positive for us to build on, because look, we're going to come up against much tougher tests than that, possibly on Friday night, and we'll be one of those. But I don't think any game in Super League is ever easy, but that was probably one of the easiest results we'll ever be able to take 2 points from.
Yeah, I mean, you look through the stats, it's not often that two props are the leading meter makers, is it? 𝗪𝗪 140 meters, and then the next top meter maker was Jared Hargreaves, which is normally you got a back, you got a centre or a winger who's making 160, 180 meters. But I suppose that's the tail of the game, isn't it? Where we didn't really need them plays out of back play to make them meters, because we was gaining meters so easily in terms of just normal play, and the fact that, like I said, 𝗪𝗪 and to be fair, he got an average gain of 9 meters from his carries. He led us superbly, and don't forget as well, we saw Sam Luckley. The fact that he returned to the side, 18th man. Willie Peters admitted that he'd give him a call during the day to say, "Hey, you might be called upon." Obviously, he was named 18th man. It was great to see him back in action as well.
Yeah, it was, and I think working backwards through that, it was good to see Luckley back after his hand injury. Good to see him get some good minutes under his belt as well. Obviously, in adverse conditions for the reason he got that opportunity. But yeah, good to see him get. And I think he again looked hungry in his performance. I think the way that you'd said there about us having to work for it, I think the work was done in defence, in the limitations that we allowed Salford to have in terms of yardage gained from there. And we were picking the ball up on our 30 or our 40 on the fly, and quite quickly entering back into their half for attack. So it was very, very much dominating. I was really, really surprised that was not far off Salford's best team out there as well in terms of the names on the team sheet. There wasn't much more to come back in that would add more quality to that. So if that's the level of performance they're going to dish up week in, week out, they're in big trouble. But with the likes of Sneed in there, who's always he's kicked us to death on many of occasions in his time. people like Callum Watkins, etc., just couldn't make any impact whatsoever. You know, they've got some very good players in McDonald, etc., you know, who were on their day very, very good. Lafay, you know, they were absolutely non-existent on Thursday night. And like I say, I'm not quite sure of the reason why, but let's give ourselves some credit for the way we forgot about their performance and concentrated on our own. And, you know, Willie Peters has talked about that a lot. We can control our own performance. We can't control what the opposition do. So for us to just stick to our plan, stick to our principles and play our game defensively, and then allow some good creative moments in attack, again shows, I think, that testament to us in that and some of that adversity that came our way.
Yeah, you mentioned the attack there, and I think special credit must go to Ches-Lytton. He came alive, didn't he? Especially in that second half, close to the line. You saw the try he scored, but also the passes he gave to 𝗀𝗄𝗏𝗏. I mean, a prop forward nearly on a hat trick is almost unheard of, but it was all due to the service of Ches-Lytton, and he really made a difference to that attacking line. He caused Salford no ends of problems when he did play that hooker role for the Robins, and he seems to be a player who's grasping the opportunity that Willie Peters has afforded him in terms of the tactics that Willie Peters is playing. So 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏, you know, on the last Robin pod we recorded, we talked about how 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗀 is so important in terms of defence. Well, the Salford game really showed the importance of Ches-Lytton in terms of attack and what he brings to that side.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think with Ches, we've seen that over the last couple of seasons, those moments where he has had that. And yes, him and Parcell have been dovetailing across that number 9. But now is the opportunity for Ches to really stake that claim on the shirt. And yeah, he gets probably 50 odd minutes. It seems that the rotation comes in of game time for Ches. And I think what I've seen looking at Ches this season is we know he can do it, but his understanding of when to do things is reading the game really, really well. And he knows when to scoot. He knows when to, you know, when defences are getting tired, big men in the middle are getting tired because they're overworked. He's ready to sort of dart in those gaps and run around them and just provide it on a plate for 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏 for his 2 tries. And, you know, he took his own well as well. So again, I think that ability to, you know, heads up footy, whatever you want to call it, his ability to see what's going on and make those in-game decisions, which are really, really quick, he's making the right calls at the minute, and it's looking good for him individually, but it's benefiting us because we're able to play off the back of that.
Yeah, you'd probably say seasons gone by, his defence has probably let him down, but he seems to be fronting up at the moment, and of course, it's what's really interesting me, Graham, and we spoke about on the last week's Robin pod, is how Willie Peters spells his forwards, and how he introduces them into the game, and then how we introduce Ches-Lytton on the back of what Mickey 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 does. But they seem to be really complementing each other, and Willie Peters will be the first to admit that at this early stage of the season that by no means is this a finished article, but you can almost see progress where this team can progress in terms of what they're doing now. And yeah, it's not perfect, but you can see this is this side has got the opportunity to build. And like we went back to what I said previously about seasons gone by in terms of how this Robin side would perform, you'd almost be fearful for the worst. Whereas now we're a lot more patient, and I think that's manifesting itself obviously in terms of the performances. You can see this side is building, and that's what excites me. And then obviously then we get the news that Rhys Martin's injured for what, 3-4 months, thigh injury, you know, and you think just when we was getting to a goal kicker who we could depend on, who gives us an 85% kicking ratio, and then we're back to now, is it Michael Lewis kicking? Is it going to be Ches-Lytton? Who's going to be the kicker? And I suppose that's the thing that frustrates you, isn't it, in terms of the Robins? Because sometimes just when you think you're going to get utopia and you're going to get something's there always to bite you on the backside.
Yeah, it is, and I think with what you said there about Jez, I think that I've never been one to sort of question his defensive duties, because I think he always punches above his weight when it comes to he's physically a smaller man than a lot of the middles he comes up against, but he doesn't shirk any of that defensive duty. And sometimes science wins out, that the bigger man bounces the little man off. That's just science. But more often than not, he's there or thereabouts, making those hard efforts to plug that middle gap as well. I think it's evident as well that we're working with a game plan. Injuries aside and adversity aside, subs aren't just thrown on because it's 60 minutes for the sake of it. There's a plan. They go on with a purpose, and the combinations of players or the tasks that they're given to do will just complement some of that work that Lytton will do, or vice versa, that Lytton will be instructed to do certain things because players are coming on fresh and ready to go at those tired middles opposite them. So I think it's good to see that we've got that and are able to execute those plans. As I said earlier on, I think the test will come when we get stronger opposition against us, and certainly when we get into the meat of the season and near the back end, when it really matters for league ladder positions, etc., or home venues in the playoffs. If we get that far, that's when we need to be able to have that fit squad, which we benefited from really, really well last season. And look, we know injuries could occur any time in any game. We've just been lucky last season. Let's hope this season for us isn't going to be a complete role reversal where we just beset with injuries. But at the minute, we've just got to roll with it and take that next man up mentality. The squad is the squad. We've got some good depth to it, and you read that sort of interchange bench, and then there's people like Luckley, who was just 18th man. You've got Jack Brown waiting on the sideline, and there'll be others chomping at the bit as well to get in if that opportunity arises. So I think squad-wise, we've got to accept that we're going to get those injuries every now and again. We just need to hope that they're kept to a minimum, and credit to as we said last season, around credit to the backroom staff and the medical team for keeping them all on the field so long last season. It proved really beneficial in having that consistent squad, being able to pick from each week. And look, if we have to deal with that race for 4 months, so be it. We've got to get on with that. We've got to find a solution to the goal kicker. The one that I came up with was, well, let's just score all our tries under the sticks then and make it nice and easy for the kicker, but probably won't work out like that.
Oh, fucking hell, great. Well, there you go. I wonder, I tell you what, every Super League coach is probably prescribing that to his team now, aren't they? Just scoring the post and then...
Yeah, it's easy, this coaching, like, Jono.
I suppose, difficult. Yeah, I suppose. I suppose, though, that we've been here before, haven't we? In terms of,
Yeah, we've got to deal with
last season, Jordan Abdul was supposed to be our main kicker, and then that all went tits up and blah blah. They'll find a solution, no doubt.
We've got to deal with it. We've got to deal with it.
What interested me as well during that game against Salford was the way that we were so ruthless in that opening 30 minutes. We scored 3 tries, which pretty much put the game to bed. The way we went about looking for tries in terms of trying to score them. One player that's really exciting me though, Graham, is Tom Davies. I think he's really took on that. I don't like talking about him in the same conversation as Ryan Hall, and I get frustrated when you listen to the media interviews that Willie Peters has to face. That every time you mention Tom Davies, it's always a comparison to Ryan Hall. And I think they're two completely different players. But Tom Davies is someone who's really exciting me and really impressing me. And I'm do you know what? I'm going to stake a claim here that he will be in the top 3 try scorers this season in Super League, because I really believe that the service he's getting and the work he does on his own, he will be in the top 3 try scorers.
Yeah, I think if he could benefit from playing outside Petter Hiku every week like Ryan Hall did last season, I think he will prosper. But like you, I think we all thought that Ryan Hall departure was going to be a big loss to us, and yes, it was. But I think we've seen already the benefits that Tom Davies can bring to the squad. He's got that similar attitude when it comes to carrying that ball out backfield. He's not afraid to do it. I thought he was excellent versus Wakefield in week 2. Thought he played really, really well there and really stood up in terms of getting us out of some tricky situations in backfield. He knows where the line is without a doubt, and I think give him half an opportunity, he'll do well. I think one advantage that he's got over Ryan Hall is, well, a couple actually, is might not be physically as big, but he's very strong. But he's got speed on his side and youth on his side compared to Ryan Hall, and I think he's got that ability as well to go for that spectacular try. We've seen the wingers nowadays have been, having to launch themselves and contort their bodies into all sorts of different shapes and angles to get that ball over the line. I think he's got that in his locker if needed, whereas I didn't think Hawley did. I thought he'd rely more on his physical strength to do that. So again, there's a couple of advantages that Davies has got, I think, over Hall. But yeah, so far so good. I think I agree with you. I think he's been excellent for us this season, and it hasn't proved a weak spot since Ryan Hall left. And the last 4 years, I think we've all loved seeing Ryan Hall play in the red and white. But now I think we've got an opportunity to heap that praise on Tom Davies if he performs as well as he is doing so far. Yeah,
he's got honestly, I do think he's going to be up there for one of the top try scorers. Anyone else stand out from that Salford game, Graham?
Yeah, I thought big shout to Brody as well. I thought he did really well, fitting in at full back. That adversity coming in. Thought he didn't look out of place. He looked really solid all night. So I think there's a big credit needs to go to Broadbent for that performance. But I thought collectively it was a proper 80-minute performance that we put in there. There was no putting the queue on the rack after 60 minutes and letting our standards drop when we knew the game was won, and we tried to Harlem Globetrotter it, or we tried really extravagant stuff when it wasn't needed. I thought we stuck to the plan really well for 80 minutes, and really pleased that we got that big fat 0 on the scoreboard against us.
Yeah, well, I heard a little rumour, and I haven't substantiated it yet, that 𝗂𝗋𝗋𝗄𝗏 will be joining Huddersfield next season. But when I heard that, I did wonder, actually, if Broadbent might displace Evells in that number 1 spot this season, based on Willie Peters seems to like him a lot, Broadbent, and credit to Broadbent. Since we signed him from when we signed him from Cass, especially last season, not many people thought he would feature so much as he did last season. The fact he played in the grand final, I mean, great credit to him. I reckon Broadbent is pushing himself. He's pushing and pushing and pushing. I wouldn't be surprised that. Do you know when your fullback gets injured and you panicked? You panic because you think normally your fullback's a position that is sacrosanct and you only have one person in that. When Broadbent goes into there, I'm getting less and less worried in terms of his place in that side. So I do think Broadbent, I think he's got every opportunity this season to actually push himself, and deservedly so, into that number 1 spot, because he's developing. And I like what I see from him. And that try against Salford give you a glimpse of what he can do with ball in hand. And he's strong defensively.
Yeah, and he's versatile as well, John, isn't he? So, in that adversity, he came from centre to play full back, and there was no... it didn't look clunky or anything like that, or out of position. He was organising well. So I agree. It could be a move that happened. I don't know. No idea about the rumours. I don't know where you get your rumours from sometimes. But look,
they're not always from the best place, Graham, because I've been wrong a few times, so don't worry.
I've warned you about looking on that dark web, mate. You need to be careful.
Yeah, that's how I got that register.
Yeah, well, again, you want to be careful. But again, the opportunity for Broadbent, again, historically, is been in and out of the squad. this is again a real opportunity for him to stake a claim on that jersey. If he's putting in performances like that, it's going to be hard for Evells to force his way back in. And that's the mentality that Peters has created about the next man up, or you've got to fight for your jersey. There's no shoe-ins for positions, and if he's performing solidly well, he'll earn that right to wear that number 1 jersey, or whatever number he's got on his back, the number 1 position.
Yeah, right. It's time for Steve Till to join us on the Robin Pod. Steve, how are we doing, my friend?
All right, how are you?
Yeah, well, I'm going to bring you back on for a game that is Graham will probably remember fondly. Is it the St Helens game from the 60s?
From the 60s, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was a speck of dust in the looking.
To quote
Steve,
David,
before we introduce,
that's Spud Sack.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Steve, before we introduce you properly, here's your proper intro. Fire away, Steve.
Yeah, Rovers St Helens. We just saw the clips there from when Rovers won the Floodlit Trophy, but I'm going to go way, way, way before then. I'm going to go to the 2nd of April 1966, where Rovers had been drawn to St Helens in the Cup quarter-final, and it snowed that weekend, and the Warrington-Leeds game was due to be the televised game, and that was called off. So the BBC decided to send the grandstand cameras to St Helens, and I think the St Helens board of directors weren't very happy about that. Anyway, as I say, it snowed, and if they called the match at Warrington off, and you know how far Warrington is from St Helens, it was odds on they were going to call the St Helens match off, but they didn't call it off until hundreds and hundreds of Rovers fans had gone across to Knowsley Road, and this is pre-M62 days, and the Rovers fans had got to Knowsley Road to find that the match had been called off and they're going to play it on Monday night. So Monday night came, Rovers had been training at Cleveland's near Blackpool, so they stayed over, and they decided to play the game on the Monday night, and the Rovers players got there, and the game took place. But what a controversial game this was. It was a brilliant game, to be honest. In the first half, Rovers had a huge pack. St Helens were the league leaders. They had a big pack too, but it was the Rovers 6 that were outdoing St Helens. This was there were no tackle limits. There was no 6 tackles or 4 tackles. And the Rovers pack dominated the St Helens 6. And Rovers, it was who scored first. When Peter Flanagan, the lively hooker, put Brian Tyson in for a try. Brian Tyson, the prop forward. So Cyril Kelly missed the goal kick. He hit the post, and that proved controversial later on. Hit the post, but Rovers were leading 3-2. Kellett later got a penalty, and that made it 5-2 at half-time. And it'd been a tough game, but Rovers were spreading the ball about and running St Helens ragged at times. So then we came to the second half. Rovers got another try. Chris Young was put over by Dave Elliott, and we're coming towards the end of the game. Rovers are leading 10-7. St Helens had scored a try. Rovers are leading 10-7. Now, had we been on Sky, had it been today, we'd have known just what was left on the clock. But for those of us that were there, we got to what we thought was the 80th minute, and Eric Clay, the referee, decided to add on some extra time. He said Rovers had been time wasting. Well, the only time the match had stopped was when Tommy Bishop and Alec Murphy, the St Helens halfbacks, had argued with the referee over a penalty incident for Rovers, and also another penalty that when Herbert, the St Helens prop forward, had smacked Bill Holiday. So where the referee got the extra time from, we don't know, but he added minutes on. And during those minutes, it was the 81st minute when Cliff Watson, the St Helens prop forward, got sent off. And yet 𝗂𝗂𝗍𝗂𝗏, the referee, in front of 15,000 fans, the referee gave St Helens the penalty. It was no good going for goal because it would have been 10-9. And no one knew exactly how much time was left, but everybody knew it was coming to the end. So Alec Murphy decided to put an up and under into the sky, and Cyril Kelly, the Rovers fullback, was under it. He was ready to catch the ball, and all of a sudden there was like a deluge of fans came from the terracing as well as the players, and seemingly Kelly disappeared and no one knew where the ball was except Alec Murphy. It was in his hands and he touched down, over the line, but the ball had actually, from where I was, bounced from the wall that surrounded the pitch. There were fans on the pitch, and 𝗂𝗂𝗍𝗂𝗏, lo and behold, awarded a try in front of the sticks. And of course, that made it 10-10. They kicked the goal, Len Killeen kicked the goal, he could backheel them over Killeen, and it was 12-10, and the referee blew the whistle. After the game, so St Helens have won. After the game, 𝗂𝗂𝗍𝗂𝗏 was questioned about whether it was a try. He says, "Well, I didn't see it. I asked my two touch judges." And apparently they were the ones who awarded the try. Rovers board were incensed. Colin Hutton, the coach, said, "I don't know where the extra time came from." He says, "Because I only went on the field twice to look after injured players." He said, "No one knows why there was the extra time." Rovers board were incensed and wrote a letter to the Rugby League asking that Clay never refereed Rovers again. Of course, he did do, but it left a very, very, very bad taste. And Alec Murphy, I can remember speaking to Alec Murphy a few years ago, and I brought back that match, and he just winked at it. I said, "Was it a try, Alec?" He said, "Just look in the papers, that'll tell you." But Ray French, in his autobiography, Ray French, the BBC commentator who played for St Helens, he was a prop forward, he was on the pitch, and he said it definitely wasn't a try in his autobiography. He said, "We're the luckiest team going." And St Helens were drawn to play Dewsbury in the semi-final, beat Dewsbury, and they played Wigan in the final and won the cup 21-2. They were also winners of the league, and they drew to play Rovers in the top 16 playoffs a few weeks later, and a massive crowd went across from Hull to St Helens. It was the day that Everton played Sheffield Wednesday in the FA Cup final, so they made the kick-off 6 o'clock. But Rovers fans didn't watch the FA Cup final. They went across to St Helens, and unfortunately Rovers were beaten 14-6, but I always remember I was there. The last 5 minutes, Frank Foster put an up and under up, and it was every man for himself under that ball, and a huge melee of players had broke out, and I think that was Rovers exacting revenge for not being able to get to Wembley that year, because having beaten Workington before they played St Helens, to beat Workington at Workington, that St Helens match proved crucial and controversial to say the least.
So, Steve, I tell you what, there's lots of stuff to dissect in that. First thing is, so those fans on the pitch interfering with the kickoff, not the kickoff, the catch of the ball, and the referee allowed it all to go on. Yeah. Wow.
There were 15,000 in the crowd. You think about that, a Monday night. It was 15,000 in the crowd, and if you remember the old Knowsley Road, it was at the end where the social club was, and there was a wall around the pitch, and the ball actually in my eyes, hit the wall and bounced back. Murphy took it in his hands and touched down and claimed a try. And Clay gave the try. They called Clay the Sergeant Major. And he gave the try. And when questioned afterwards, he said, I didn't see it, but I relied on my touch judges. But everyone was querying where the extra 4 minutes came from for a start, you know. Colin Hutton was really incensed. He said, he'd set his watcher, you know, for 40 minutes at half time. He had a stopwatch, and he said he allowed 4 minutes extra time. And of course, had they gone they couldn't kick a penalty for 2 points because they'd still been beaten 10-9. But the up and under went up, and it was all hell let loose.
Yeah, and Steve, I tell you what,
the video ref would have sorted that out now, wouldn't he? You know.
Yeah, Steve, great memories. There'll be a number of Robins fans who are watching and listening to this will be making the trip down the M62 on Friday night to watch the Rovers in luxury coaches, in cars, trains, you know, planes, trains and automobiles. Tell me about your experience of watching the Robins back then as a young kid going over to St Helens.
We travelled everywhere by train, obviously. I mean, I was 13.
First class.
Oh, yeah. The third class. No, I think they got rid of third class just before then. But no, we travelled everywhere by train. We went to... In fact... this is a story that happened that week. That was the week before Easter, and Rovers played 3 matches over Easter. Good Friday, they beat the old enemy 31-5, and then they beat Leeds
as usual.
Yeah, then they beat Leeds 3-0, and I think it was Hunslet that played on the Easter Monday. But a couple of weeks later, as I said, they had the top 16 playoffs, and Rovers were drawn at Castleford. And Hull were drawn at Wakefield. And there was a train special that went from Hull, dropped the Rovers fans off at Castleford, and took the Hull fans to Wakefield. So that both teams' fans shared a train. Could you imagine that? Well, it would happen, but yeah, we went everywhere by train. I did anyway. Halifax, Wakefield, Castleford, Leeds. Yeah. And it wasn't that expensive, you know. But yeah, that's how you went to these matches. Because the M62, it kind of ended at one point at Pontefract. So they hadn't built the Pontefract to Hull section or to North Cave section. So you had to, you went on a supporters bus. East Yorkshire also sent busloads of supporters as well. But I tended to go by train.
Great, thanks for that, Steve. I'll tell you what, we'll keep you on. Graham, St Helens up next. Normally, when you travel across to St Helens with the Robins, you're expecting the worst, aren't you? It's a bit different now, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we've now shown we can compete. We've now shown we can go away on a Friday night and win out of Hull or out of Yorkshire. So I think that monkey's well off the back. I think Saints are a strange one at the minute because they haven't really come up against a tough test. So I think this is going to be an interesting one to call on Friday night and watch them against 𝗀𝗂𝗧 over the weekend. And whilst they did some decent stuff, I wasn't blown away by their performance against Wakefield. And I think if we can perform well, we've got a good chance of going over there. I don't think it'll be the same scoreline as we got last year when they were beset by many injuries. But I think we can go over there with confidence, definitely, 3 from 3. We're playing some decent stuff, but I think this is now really the first proper test when things are settling down and we're coming up against a club that should be there or thereabouts in the playoffs at the end of the season. So I think it'll be a good good benchmark of where we're at. Still relatively early in the season against Saints on Friday night.
Yeah, Steve, you're a betting man. The bookies will probably put St Helens slight favourites, but that's probably home advantage because it's a real tough one to put your money on, isn't it? Because Robins have done so well, and St Helens are you're still not quite sure what they can do this year.
Yeah, they haven't. The Wakefield match was the hardest game, I guess. They played Westall, then they played Salford, and then Wakefield. And Castleford. They beat Castleford, didn't they? Yeah. So they've not met the strongest teams yet. I think in a way it's a free hit for Rovers because deep down, like being a betting man, I'd be looking at St Helens to win off levels, but with the start, I think Rovers will probably get 6 start or 8 start on the Coultons. But it's a free hit for Rovers. I don't know what I missed the early part of the cast, but would you want Mikey Lewis coming back against St Helens, or would you give him another week or two? I don't know. But it's certainly a free hit for Rovers, and we're certainly not going there without hope. We've got to, our key is our defence, and we've just got to keep hitting them and putting them off their game. You know, they've had it free and easy. They can throw the ball about. Saylor can strut his stuff. Phelps, I call him Vanessa. He can do all the stuff down the wing and celebrate as much as he wants against the Salford side and Cass. But he'll meet a different player when he meets the Rovers defence, So for me it's a free hit. I go with more hope than confidence, but wouldn't it be nice to do them again? Even if it's by 1 point. I don't mind winning every game by 1 point. If we keep winning.
Yeah, great. I'll tell you what, there is a few. Obviously, when you look at the squad in terms of injuries, who might be playing, who might not be playing. We talk about Mikey Lewis, Tyrone May. Well, at the moment, they've every chance that they're playing, and as much as we may say, "Oh, give them an extra week," well, if they're fit, no, they're playing. And we're sort of city doctors, aren't we, in terms of casting our aspersions on the fitness of players? But if they're fit, they're fit. It'd be great to see. I do think it'd be great to see Mikey Lewis and Tyrone May. They can line up. There is a big question mark, though, then who goes into the second row, Graham, in terms of Rhys Martin not being able to play? Because the way that Willie Peters has spelled Tanganoa, the way he's played Dean Hadley, it's not necessarily there's not a like for like replacement in terms of that position.
No, I think, I'd maybe sort of suggest that we go with confidence rather than hope, first of all, to St Helens, given 3 from 3, playing pretty good. With both teams have played the same teams in the opening 3 games, obviously in different combination, but I've still not seen anything from Saints. I'm discounting the Salford game. I've still not seen anything where they are in good form as we are. And again, against Wakey, when I watched them, I wasn't particularly excited by watching them and thinking that they're going to, they've got threats from all over the field. So I think we can go in confidence rather than hope. But I think with the back row, we've got options there now. We've got Batchelor, we've got Hadley, we've got Rhys Martin, we've got Tanganoa. So we've got 4 bodies there, 4 good bodies on any given week. If 2 of them are chosen, as a fan, you'd be happy with that. So whoever it is, whether it's Hadley for the work rate and the defence, and then that's spelled with Tanganoa a bit later on for the power and explosiveness that he can bring to it. Whoever it is, we saw Tanganoa play some good minutes on Thursday evening as well. So yeah, I'm not particularly fussed either way. You know, the medical issues, the staff, the coaches will, and the players will make those calls between them, so that I think we can trust whatever side that Peters puts out there. It's done in the best interest of trying to get the 2 points on Friday night.
I'd like to see Sam Luckley being the 17. I thought Sam Luckley had a good game on Thursday night.
Who's expense, Steve?
I tell you what, Steve, you're right. I tell you what, Steve, it was great to see Sam Luckley back. I remember when we first signed him, many people thought he'd be a filler player, you know, someone who probably won't feature that much. And actually, he's embraced his opportunity to be at Hull Kingston Rovers. And every time he takes to the field, I think, Steve, he brings something. And don't forget, on Friday against Salford, he was the 18th man. And Willie Peters, you know, he admitted he gave him a message to say that, yeah, you might get some action tonight. It's a different mindset for a player to be, could I, you know, it's hard, isn't it, to be, well, I might be, I might not. But I tell you what, I like Sam Luckley. I think he's a great player. He's got great energy. And what I like about him is how he's embraced his opportunity, how he's really then took it on. And for a player who we thought would be a backup player, he's actually one player that I think get him in that side if he can.
Yeah. It's Graham. I think you were about to say, who would you put him in?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you there, Steve, who's expense? So would it be a straight case of moving Hadley back into the back row to accommodate Luckley, in your opinion?
Yeah.
But again, as a front four with Hargreaves, Whitbread, Sue, and Luckley, that's a strong four to keep rotating.
Yeah. And Hadley will play anyway, won't he?
Yeah, he'll grab.
He'll play scrum half if he had to, you know.
Yeah.
Well, all I'm going to throw in is a grenade into that conversation in terms of how well Jack Brown did in pre-season.
Yeah.
And how he looks lean and fit and ready to go. And he will be desperate to get his opportunity because he's probably been fortunate, let's be honest, been fortunate to be brought into our fold. And since he has, he's really knuckled down. The fact he was made captain for the York pre-season game in Amsterdam, then he was named 18th man. Then he, you know, look at the opportunities that have been presented to him. He's to come on. So we haven't even talked about 𝗬𝗏𝗏, you know, one of the championship's best players. So competition places in them forwards is red hot.
Yeah, it just shows
champion at the bit.
Yeah, with Jack Brown, he must be knocking on that door because he's 18th man, I think, twice now, maybe this season, something like that. In Super League, like you say, captain when they went over to the pre-season game in Amsterdam. So again, he's obviously in the thinking. He's trimmed down, bulked up over the course of the off season as well. So yeah, like you said, he should be a young kid who's chomping at the bit to get his opportunity, and he should be pushing from underneath to make sure that the other four in front of him, if that's the case, know that he's there and he's ready to go if there is that opportunity arises for him.
Right, question time. We're coming to the end of the Robin Pod. We'll keep you both on. Steve, do you think even with the injuries that could rule players out, we've now gone past the Saints away? It's a free hit, and we should be thinking we're good enough to win, Steve. I'm going to put that at you because you said it was a free hit.
In my eyes, because I've been a Rovers fan for too long. But I do believe in this team. Yeah. I mean, like I say, it's being a Rovers fan that makes it a free hit. But they'll go with the players will go with confidence. Oh, without a doubt. You've got to go with confidence. Every match you play, you've got to go with some kind of confidence. And so I think it'll be a 4-pointer either way.
Yeah,
that's my view on it. It'll be a 4-pointer either way. And yeah, if we can go into, I'll tell you something. Rovers beat Salford at the weekend. The other side beat Huddersfield. Our local newspaper put out 13 articles about them lot, and they put out one over the weekend. This was up to last night. They put 13 articles about them lot and put one. I want to see us beat St Helens and see how many articles they put out about our successes, because I think that's criminal the way they operate.
Yeah, Graham, I suppose a victory against St Helens this early on in the season, away from home, it's still early doors, but these are the kind of results that do make you believe.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think, as not just the players going with confidence, I think fans should go with a bit of confidence as well. Not arrogance, certainly not, but confidence that we've got the game plan, we've got a good structure in place, we've got the players. I think we can go with confidence to compete there.
Yeah, Badger Kingston on Facebook. Would you make a place for Richardson in the starting lineup against Saints, Graham?
Depends if Lewis and/or May are fit enough to play.
Yeah. And then, Steve, this is interesting. Adam Wadforth on Facebook, he says, disciplinary-wise, if some of our players who are nearing a ban reach that limit after Saints game, bear with me, can we use that, say, 1 game ban for the cup game versus Oldham? So basically, what he's saying is, because obviously the points are now accumulated out there for disciplinary, would it be wise for some of our players who are nearing a ban that limit after the Saints game to get a ban against Oldham to then make them limit, to get them to then their ban comes off and they go back to 0?
I mean, I'm reading into that. Does he want a Rovers player to get? Yeah,
well, I think it's like in football. It's like that football where if you get a yellow card after so many, it wipes up. If you're in a cup competition, you get a yellow card, or a red card, you get so many, then it wipes them out. But you can then play in the semi-final or the final, or I don't know.
Yeah, let's not talk of bans.
Play the game. Play the game to win it.
Yeah, you've got to go into a game full. You've got to be wholehearted in a game, whether a ban comes. And if a ban comes, then so be it. We've got players like Jack Brown. We've got players like Luckily. We've got Doro. We've got players champing at the bit in the backs. So we've just got to go play the cards as they are, and don't worry about bans. Just play the game. What I did notice what I've noticed in every match this season, our discipline has been pretty good. In fact, in rugby league, throughout the game, all the games I've seen, some of the games have been a bit tepid, but the tackling has been legal in most games. And so let's just carry on as we are.
Yeah, Graham, I've got a couple of questions for you. Would you rather have £150 or Jared Warner-Hargreaves' head full of pound coins?
Definitely his head full of pound coins. It's massive.
Yeah, true. Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis or Mikey Lewis?
For what?
That's the question.
Oh. Mikey, of course it is.
Yeah.
Whatever it's for.
Well, what context is that question?
There is no context, Steve. That's how random these questions are. That is it. There you go.
Who sent that one in?
No, that's just mine. No one's even sent it in.
You're making it up as you go along with it.
Yeah, there you go.
I see. Just talking about bans and what have you. I see Tom Holroyd got 2 matches for. I don't know if you saw the incident.
Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting, Steve.
Yeah. I mean, how can...
He knew what he was doing, full stop. He knew exactly what he was doing there to that player.
Yeah. How can the Salford player who got... Was it Shorrocks? Who was the Salford
Joe Shorrocks,
player? Yeah. He gets 3 matches for what he did. Yeah, Holroyd only gets 2 for what he did.
Yeah. Well, Steve, I ain't got time to start another podcast, so we'll leave the disciplinary issues. We haven't talked about Vegas and Derek Beaumont straddling a Harley Davidson. with Warrington head coach Sam Burgess after a defeat. All the fallout from that. All I hope is that next year is that Hull Kingston Rovers are playing in Las Vegas. That would be a fantastic opportunity. I don't know if my wife would be quite happy with that, but she's not invited, so it'd be.
Well, there you go. She's not going to be happy if she's not invited. You just give them a
You'd
bit.
probably be ecstatic, Jono, that you're not there.
Well, it's not my fault. The education system is like it is it? And teachers not allowed to take holidays during the non-school holidays. Anyway, that's digressing. A huge thanks, Steve Graham, for joining me on this week's Robin Pod. Of course, we'll be joining you next week, hopefully on the back of a victory over St Helens. But for now, live, love, laugh and be happy.
Singing a song when the red, red robin comes bob, bob, bobbing. When the red, red robin comes bob, bob, bobbing. When the red, red robin comes bob, bob, bobbing along.
The Robin Pod is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre. Make them your first and only choice for a vast array of vehicle services. They are reputable East Hull-based car specialists and dedicated to providing quality services at reasonable prices. And don't forget, they are trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Find them at 146 Leeds Road and ask them about the exclusive discount they offer Hull KR Rovers Forever members.